Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello. How are you? I just realized I'm sitting just between you and probably a cold beer, so we're going to make it snappy and interesting. Let me say a few words about why I'm here talking to you. So I'm fortunate enough to work for this company called Facebook, which you probably heard about. At Facebook, I'm in charge of the platform partnership team for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. What that means is basically two things. Our team does, basically, on the one hand, we help developers like you build the best possible products using all the tools that Facebook provides and all the different platforms that we have, whether it's Messenger, whether it's VR in the future, et cetera, et cetera. On the other hand, we have a team also building developer programs all across the region. For example, our team helped open a developer school in Berlin a few months ago for refugees coming into Germany. Our team is also working on an incubator that we announced inside a project called Station F in Paris. So there's a lot of stuff we're doing in Europe and in Africa also to help developers get going on the platform. That's what we do. Basically, when I was kindly offered to speak here, the reason I was very happy to do so is first because it's an awesome conference, but second because it was an opportunity for us to address the broader developer ecosystem in the region. First, to explain that we're building a team in Europe. I came here with a person who's in charge of the broader Germany and Austrian market, Malte, who's here, which you'll probably have a chance to say hi to if you want to. So we're here for real. We're building a team in Europe to serve developers like you. And the second thing, when I asked what would be the most useful to talk about, we looked at the feedback, and there was a lot of requests about Messenger. We'd be happy to talk about a bunch of other stuff, including some of the stuff we announced at F8 a couple of weeks ago, but I will focus my talk on Messenger. And more specifically, I was trying to make it slightly different from the other presentations. And there's been a lot of talks and a lot of sessions post-F8 about the new Messenger platform from a technical perspective. But we rarely get a chance to actually talk about how businesses can actually grow and build their businesses on Messenger, which is what I want to talk to you about today. So let me talk a little bit about messaging behavior. The reason it's important is that we've been talking for a long time at Facebook about why messaging apps matter, and that's a phenomenon way bigger than Facebook for a whole set of reasons. But to give you a sense for scale, because this is kind of crazy scale, in the world, by next year, about 2 billion people will be actively using messaging apps every month. That's 2 billion out of 7+ billion people in the world. So those type of apps, whether it's ours, WhatsApp, Messenger, Line, Kakao, WeChat, they are becoming not only massive, but they're becoming really a phenomena in the tech space and a complete new way of interacting between humans and technology and businesses at a scale that's been rarely seen before. To give you some other sense for scale, when you ask people, are you using messaging apps more now than you used 2 years ago? But 60% of them say, yes, I do. And the data actually supports this even more. The actual usage has grown by more than 59%. And then when you ask them, are you expecting to use it more in the future? The number is also over 50%. So what that means is that this thing is big. It grew a lot, and it grew organically. But more importantly, it's going to grow even more. And the last thing that's interesting about the messaging space in general, if you're like me, someone who's been in technology for a while and seen many, many trends, is that it goes across, you rarely get any products that really go across all types of segments. Messaging apps are used by any generation. We use them. I'm over 40. I use it every day. My kids are probably going to use them. My mom uses it. Pretty much it's a cross-generation thing across all customer segments, and everyone sees different sets of values in those platforms.
It's great to be able to connect with people in such a fast and easy way.
So interestingly enough, those are interviews we did a few months ago of real users just talking about Messenger, how they felt about it. What you'll notice is that the way they talk about the product and the interaction is very personal. You don't feel like they're talking about a piece of technology. They're talking about how they interact with other people. That lady who was running a small business talked about how she uses it to actually talk to her existing customers. The key point I'm trying to make here is that what we're talking about here is a piece of technology that fundamentally connects people. When you step up a little bit and try to take a little bit of a broader perspective, and you ask yourself, what is Facebook? In my view, Facebook is fundamentally the connections between people. If we go around the room here, the one thing that connects most of us here, irregardless of age, race, where you're from, what you do, is probably in some shape or form Facebook. We're that graph that connects all those people. And I would argue, in the first generation of the products we launched, what we did is build services that allows you to connect to your friends and family. But if you looked at your day-to-day and asked yourself, how many human interactions did I had? And if you listed them, those interactions would probably fall into 3 categories. The first category would probably be your friends and family. I live in London. I took a flight this morning. I saw my wife, my kids, and then I left my house. I left my house, got on a cab, and I started talking to that cab driver, where it was basically me talking to a business through whom I had reserved my cab. Got on an airplane, got here, met my colleague Malte, and then I met many of you today. The point is, if I list all my interactions, they fall into 3 categories. My friends and families, which is kind of the beginning of Facebook and WhatsApp to some extent, and Messenger. The second category would be your colleagues, which we're trying to address with this platform that we launched called Workplace. And the third one is fundamentally the human interactions we're having with people who are inside a business. And the key word here is human, meaning there's so many interactions that we have where, without really thinking about it, we're through human interacting with a company or a business or a service. And that's one thing we're trying to enable with Messenger. The point I wanted to make with the following slide, which is it's kind of a silly slide for anyone who's built, I don't know, bots or knows Messenger well, is that what's interesting is when we look at all the stuff that was built on Messenger, there were lots and lots of bots, over 100,000, I think is the official number, that were built on Messenger. And some of them are very useful, some of them are less useful. And we try to give feedback to developers about this is the way you should think about building on Messenger. We try to ground them in the basics of the platform. And we literally go back to what messaging apps are and how different they are from other apps, websites, VR, or any other piece of technology or any platform you can build upon. And in my view, messaging apps have 3 attributes. And I'll spend a minute on each of them because I think that it's important. The first one is, and we use adjectives to describe them. The first one is instant. What that means is that a messaging app allows you, if you're a business, to connect to a user like this. If you are an airline who wants to tell a customer, sorry, your flight is late by 2 hours, you shouldn't go to the airport just now, a messaging app allows you to do so instantly with a guaranteed delivery of the message and a sense that the user will get your message at the right time. The second thing, which is sometimes lost a little bit in the mix, is it's expressive. In many ways, messaging apps have sort of replaced SMS. And one of the first reasons people used them, yes, they were free, but almost more importantly, they allowed people to say a lot more. If you look at the videos I just played, people talk a lot about personal stuff, how they felt closer, how they could express their feelings and emotions, and they could really be themselves. And there's a sense of expressiveness which is really important for pretty much anything you want to do on Messenger. And interestingly enough, later on I'll show you examples of businesses that have been very successful on Messenger. Most of them have actually used that attribute, either for a brand or for a service, for anything. And the third one is, the word we use is convergent, which means if you think about all different technology platforms, they have different bricks, for lack of a better word, different components. And more inside messaging apps, a lot of those bricks are coming together. And I'll give you 2 examples. One is location data. Location data was first used surprisingly, on the web, pre-iPhone, through maps applications, and where basically that data was very useful to just render the service. More and more location data is becoming a primitive function of all messaging apps. I would argue to a lot of apps. Uber without location data is a non-service, for example. But it's also true for other bricks, like payments. WeChat would not be what it is if it was not the preferred payment system in China. A lot of people use WeChat, yes, to talk to their friends, but more and more because it's the fastest and easiest way to pay for pretty much anything if you're in China. So there's more and more of those bricks which are converging into messaging apps, and that's very much what we're trying to do with Messenger. So to summarize, I would say you got instant, expressive, and convergent, which you should really remember for anything you try to build on Messenger, because if you don't touch on those 3 points, either your product is not right for Messenger, or Messenger is not right for the product or the service you're trying to build. So let me talk a little bit about Messenger in the context of businesses. There's a lot of misconception, preconceived ideas on that topic. I get the question a lot about, there's no business on Messenger. I've never interacted with businesses. So let me share a bit of data to show you what the starting point is today. So first, among people surveys who manage businesses, when you ask them, have you messaged your users more in the last year? More than 60% of them say yes, and the data strongly supports this for actual usage. Then if you ask them, once you get messaged by a business in any forms, SMS, from a Facebook page, etc., does it make you more likely to buy from that business? A large number of people, majority of them say yes, which is interesting. So let me go through a little bit more the details about why businesses are coming to Messenger. So that's a big reason why. That I think the official number is now 1.2 billion people using Messenger every month. Just think about it, 1.2 billion. This is kind of a crazy number. So fine, you might ask me, most of this is consumer, which is true. And then the next question I get is, how many businesses? Well, to give you a sense for scale, today, that number is probably higher actually today, we announced, I think at F8, that 70 million businesses have Facebook pages live on Facebook. 70 million businesses. Mind-blowing number. And the main reason it's so is that if you're a business of any kind, offline, online, small, medium, large, having a Facebook presence is as easy as opening a Facebook account. So that's what a lot of businesses are doing when they get going, whether they're a local bakery or Procter & Gamble. And then when we survey how many of those businesses actually exchange messages with their customers, that number is about 20 million. So my point is that the population of consumers and businesses that are already interacting is high and bigger than we can think from an outside perspective. The next question I get all the time is, fine, so they connect, but how much do they connect? What number of messages do they send to each other? About 2 billion a month. So today, not in the future, not in 10 years, today, there are about 2 billion messages exchanged between consumers and businesses just on Messenger. So what do businesses do? Let me explain a little bit the different things that businesses use, the different reasons why businesses use Facebook Messenger. The first one is pretty simple. A lot of people use it to raise awareness, get the business known. It's true for small businesses, it's true for large ones, it's true for brands, it's also true for other types of businesses. The second one is they use it to actually get customers. And I'll show you a few examples of very successful ways for people to actually acquire customers to the Messenger platform. The third thing they do, mostly outside of this region yet because we haven't enabled payment yet, is actually enable transactions. And in North America, primarily where we're live with native payments, there's a large volume of transactions going through already the Messenger platform. And then there's a growing category, I spoke to a lot of you today, of businesses that use Messenger to provide service. solve problems, do customer support, answer questions, etc., etc., etc. So those are mostly the 4 categories of things that people do, that businesses do using Messenger. I don't know if I'll have time to go through all the examples, but I want to show you a few ones. The first one, for example, is a service in Portuguese which is about discovering places. This is about discovering Rio, and basically this is an example of a company where you can interact with the bot, ask them questions about where should I go, what's interesting. It's a much more intuitive way to interact with the service to discover a place you're about to go to. The third example, which is kind of interesting, is this is a movie studio who was trying to make a big showcase for a scene in a movie that was about to come out. In this example, they came to us and said, what can we do? And they basically created an experience on Messenger where they could have this persona coming up to the screen and really make you feel like you're talking to someone who's on Mars. Crazy, this thing was seen by 6 million people in one day. Immense success. The common theme around those 3 is that all those 3 experiences match the 3 adjectives I told you. They're very expressive, they're instant, and they use different bricks that we have on Messenger. Let me try to show you a few other examples. Mercedes-Benz. This is an example of one company we work with. I think it's their subsidiary in Dubai, where basically their business is fundamentally to spend money to get people to the dealer shop so they can try new cars. And this is a long-lasting industry, and they spend a lot of money to get people to come to their dealer so they can try the latest car. This is an example where, from the bot, you can immediately interact with the customer, ask them, what would you like? Which car would you be interested in testing? When can you come, etc., etc., etc. It makes the process of bringing someone to the dealership so much easier than any other way, when it was mostly done by phone before, paying a very high price for each lead. I won't bore you with all the other examples, but the third one is interesting. So I'm sure none of you is using any dating apps, but in case you would have friends who do, this is a funny example, where it's a company called Mythic. Mythic is a pretty big French brand in dating, kind of the Match.com in France. And it is a very competitive industry in dating. There's a lot of competition. And by the way, once someone gets into your service, the value per user is very high. So people compete like crazy to get a customer in. So what Mythic did is very interesting. They created this persona, which is this girl called Lara. And Lara is the one inviting you to Mythic. So you can talk to her, and she'll ask you a few questions. Julien, are you looking for a male or female? Where do you live? Are you into sports? Are you more into culture, etc., etc., etc.? And using this way, Mythic can bring you into their brand in a way that's completely different from any other ways dating services used to work. Lara will show me, other members of Mythic the same way a good friend of yours would introduce you to dates. It's done through a Messenger interface. It was quite interesting, and actually it's been very successful. So I'll go through a few other examples briefly. So the third one is the one I'll insist on. Since you live on this part of the world, you probably don't know that brand. Globe is one of the largest mobile operators in Asia. Tens of millions of customers, the size, think literally telecom. Massive company. They had this huge problem where they basically have very lean operations. Price point is low, very good customer service, and they have a very unique brand. Their brand means something. People don't get on their service. The brand is very important. So they work with us, and we help them build a persona of the agents. And that's this girl. I think in Chinese you pronounce it G. So G is your friend. She's the only face of customer support now for Globe. If you ever want to talk to anyone in customer support, you talk to her. And through her, they've created this massive experience where she's the one helping you. She acts as your friend. You speak to her more and more as if you were to get to know her. And over time, they've now migrated a large portion of their customer support through this bot. Funny enough, and as I said, it's always the same story of rebuilding this personal relationship which you expect to have with the business through a bot, which I find quite interesting. I have other examples, but I'll go quickly. So let me summarize a little bit what we've been seeing. So we've seen this kind of circle, virtual circle among businesses being successful on Messenger, where people first create experiences on Messenger, and there's many cases, as I said, from getting people in, to getting them to interact with content, to interacting with a CS agent. Then they drive discovery and engagement through this. And then we build them tools so they can measure the impact that they're seeing. And that's what's been happening for all the clients that we've worked with that have been successful. A few hot topics. I know there's quite a few bot developers in the house, so I want to address some of the questions you might have head on. A lot of the questions we got from our top developers has been about discovery. I build a bot, I have 10,000 customers, and they love it. How do I get 100,000? How do I get 5 million? Normally, I have other ways to do it in other platforms, in messengers. I didn't. Well, that has changed at the last F8. I don't have the slide for this, but if you install the latest version of Messenger, you'll see that we now have a discovery tab on Messenger, which allows you to really discover new bots based on where you are, your personal interests, what your friends like, et cetera, et cetera. So discovery has been massively revamped on the platform, which I think will give a great premium for top developers doing their work the right way. And that, that just to show you an example of what it can look like. So you can literally, you can browse, you can discover, and remember, every time you see that discovery tab, you're a tap away from being inside the service. So compared to any other app stores that exist out there, a friend of yours might be interacting with Mercedes. Because you're close and you have similar interests, you will see the Mercedes bot. You're a tap away from being in a conversation with them. Never been done before. I find it very cool. There's many other ways we're improving discovery. Let me explain a little bit for those of you who are thinking, okay, well, I want to do this, but where do I start? What are the entry points? The key point here that we're making is that the world where you used to live, on a website, or on an app, or on a bot, and that were the only way you interacted with a service, we think they're gone. We see it in our own services on Facebook and WhatsApp and Messenger. People navigate across different services, different platforms. So we want to make sure that we give you the tools which allow you to bring the bot experience at the right time from the right platform. And that's what we've built. Those are 4 examples of ways people can get into a bot and origins from where they can land into a bot. The first one is a simple one that's quite powerful, is a website plugin. So we have a lot of developers, for example, in e-commerce where you just completed your purchase, you want to track your purchase on Messenger, you have a web plugin, easily click it, you're in the bot, and the brand can give you the receipt, the confirmation, let you know if your flight is late, etc., etc., etc. That's been very popular and has worked really well so far. The second one is the one I put on the cover page of this presentation, which is the Messenger code. There are a lot of countries where, if used wisely and smartly, there's a lot you can do with Messenger code. We've seen a lot of street smart marketing happening through this. This is a great way when you're at a conference and you don't want to have to give away a business card. People can just scan your code. It's a great way to get people to discover your bot and get going. The third one also, which is very large for us, is a lot of people describe their business through a Facebook page. And it's very easy from the Facebook page to land into Messenger directly from just at the click of a button. And the last one is you can have a URL as well, which directs you to the bot. If you build a bot, you might put it in your signature, which a lot of people do. You might email it. There's so many different ways to share it. You might actually send a Messenger message with a short code for it. So anyway, lots and lots and lots of entry points. We're also now testing ways for people to go from newsfeed into Messenger, which is quite successful in certain cases. This is a good example for this market product. We're also starting to do some tests. They're still small tests, where there are ways for businesses to actually advertise inside Messenger. So you can have one conversation, which is a sponsored one, which will drive people back to your experience if you want to, using all the targeting capabilities that you normally have on Facebook. So to summarize, basically,
what I really want you to take away is go back to the basic of what the platform is and is not. Build from that. And once you build, ask yourself, where am I really going to bring value? Is it in getting a business to be known? Is it in acquiring new customers? Is it in basically transforming them into paying customers? Or is it just in providing services? And that's a good place to start. As I said, that circle is really the circle we've seen over and over and over again with bot developers being successful of providing a great experience, driving discovery and engagement, measuring, and then going back and again and again and again. All the bots we've seen that have been successful in this region and around the world have all gone through multiple circles like this, and there's a lot of tools we have at your disposal for that. So I'll leave you with a few observations. So if you were to get started, I got a lot of questions today from all sort of people asking me, okay, well, I'm interested, I want to get going, this thing is important, I should do it. Where do I start? So let me leave you with a few simple principles to get started. So first is, it really starts with understand your audience well. It sounds completely stupid, but so many times we see a bot that's built for the wrong audience. And that's really hard to fix. And depending on your audience, the journey might be completely different, the face, the brand, the way it's expressive will be completely different. So really focus on what's your audience and where does the bot come into talking to that audience. The second is like, ask yourself, what is it really that I want to accomplish with this thing? Do I want a lot of people to discover my brand or my service, whatever? Do I want people to come to my shop? Do I want people to play my game? Be very clear on what is it that you're trying to do. Because we're seeing a lot of bots where they're cool, but like if you ask the developer, what is success, they can't really tell you. It sounds simple, but that's really important. Second, ask yourself, what is going to be my development strategy? What's my minimum viable product that I can launch and test and start to get feedback and go back to improving it? Build it, or get someone else to build it. There's a lot of companies now in the business of building great bots. Many of them are actually here in Vienna. And then drive awareness and engagement. So once the service is built, there's many ways for you to grow it, get people to know it, either through paid or organic matters, by the way. They equally work. And then be always in the mindset of like changing and tweaking, because this whole platform is very new, the services are new. Getting the learnings into the product the same way that it used to be 10 years ago for app stores, same applies to Messenger. So I'll leave you with a few resources if anyone wants to get deeper. I put a few links up there that we'll share with you about how to get going, et cetera, et cetera. There's tons of stuff on developers@facebook.com. And that's it. Thank you very much. I think we'll take a few questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Julien. So we've got time for just a couple of questions. Sigi asks, how does Facebook Messenger strategy, I'm going to translate it a little bit. How does the Facebook Messenger strategy relate to the Facebook-owned WhatsApp?
Oh, you mean WhatsApp versus...
Like what's the, I guess, positioning of the two related to one another?
Sure. So first, I mean, interestingly enough, Facebook, the geographical overlap is much smaller than people think. In most places, countries are either WhatsApp countries or Messenger countries. If you overlap the two, there are very few countries where both are big and successful. That's point number one. So in some ways, we don't really have to solve that problem because that problem is there in a very small number of countries.
Do you know what kind of country Austria is?
I do.
Are we WhatsApp or Messenger?
Funny enough, you're in between. Germany is very much a WhatsApp country, as everyone knows. Austria, to my knowledge, is still a big WhatsApp country, but probably a little bit more balanced than Germany. So I would say, first, geographically, they cover very different places. You go to Spain, it's all WhatsApp. You go to Holland, it's all WhatsApp. You go to France, it's a little bit more Messenger. So point number one. Point number two is the products are actually very, very different. If you observe people using WhatsApp, they use WhatsApp like they use their phone app. It's their SMS app. It's the phone app. That's what they use it for. If you look at people who are very engaged into Messenger, it's a platform. It's a bunch of stuff in there, and they like it. If they didn't, they would be using WhatsApp or something else. So the two products are very different. And third is they're also at a very different stage of their development. One is completely platformized and very open for business, for developers, lots of tools. The other one is very, very simple and straightforward. So I think we're pretty comfortable having both.
OK. Well, thank you very much, Julien.
Thank you.